And good afternoon. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and publisher of What's Up Noop. Today is Thursday, October 6th, and with just 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now before early voting begins. Early voting begins on October 19th. We are chatting with the candidates. This week has all been about Newport, and we are fitting in the majority of Newport candidates this week. If you'd like to see these interviews with any of the candidates for school committee or city council at large, you can find them on whatsupnoop.com. We also have a new feature where you can listen to them wherever you listen to your podcasts. So if you don't have the time to sit down and watch a lot of them, you can listen to them while you walk around Newport, exercise, drive, whatever you'd like, however you enjoy your podcasts, if you're a podcast listener. Of course, if you want to view them, you can visit whatsupnoop.com and view them as well. Today, we are back at Newport City Council at Large. And when you visit vote.ri.gov, you can view your sample ballot, which is how I'm doing this now. And under nonpartisan council at large, she is seventh in the random drawing that happened. And she is Lynn Underwood Ceglie, and she joins us today. A completely random drawing, but you ended up at the bottom of the choices.
Yeah, well, you got to save the best for last, right? So I don't know
That's
what
it.
about that.
It's all right. It's it's just funny how sometimes it happens.
It happens, that's the way it goes. That's why we have a lottery, so it makes it fair for everybody.
Yes, and Lynn, how long have you been on city council now?
I was elected in 2014, so I've been on for 8 years.
And you spent some time, just to remind people, as a ward councilor, and now you are at large.
Right. I was elected in 2020 as an at-large councilor. That's right.
And I'd like to spend a couple minutes in case we have first-time residents, voters. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Reintroduce us to Lynn. Sometimes I take it for granted, and others might take it for granted that we know who you are. We know something about you. I think This is a good opportunity to learn a little bit about you.
Well, thank you. Well, yes, I've lived in Newport for nearly 40 years now. I have deep roots here because my father was from Newport. He grew up on Peckham Avenue. And I grew up in Tiverton because he worked for the Bank of Newport out there. But I got involved in Newport issues when my kids were in the Newport Public Schools, and I didn't go to a meeting one day at Cranston Calvert, and I ended up becoming president of the PTO. So that kind of got me started. And then I started meeting people and realizing that there were issues that I was interested in particular, the funding of the schools. I saw that the schools were being level funded quite a bit at that time, and I was upset by that. My kids were in the schools, and I could see the possibility of opportunities decreasing. So when I got on the council, there was not a good relationship with the school committee at that time, and I think that we have improved that over time. So going forward, though, I was on the zoning board, the Charter Review Commission in 2008. And I've just done a lot of things in the city. I've worked a lot with kids in the Newport Public Schools. I worked in the public schools. So that's what brought me to the council. And I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed especially the one-on-one working with people and being responsive to their needs. And, when I was the second ward councilor, I was limited to the second ward, and it kind of became my baby, So being an at-large counselor is not really that much different, but it's a bigger job.
Yeah, and I just have to make note of two things quickly. You too can follow in Lynn's footsteps. There are dozens of opportunities on boards and commissions within the city of Newport. Go to the city's website. They are always looking for volunteers, PTO, all of those. So you don't have to jump all the way up to serve and get elected. There are plenty of volunteer opportunities within the city.
And I recommend that as a vehicle moving forward, because there's a lot to learn. And when I was on the zoning board, it was like, the learning curve was huge. And so when I got to the council, I understood a lot more about open meetings, about what it takes to do the job. So there's a lot more to it than what it looks like on the surface.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a plug for my buddy Chase. Both of your children are success stories, and if you enjoy music, look up Chase. Go see him Sunday nights over at the Firehouse Theater.
Well, he's got a new album coming out soon too, so we're looking forward to that. And my daughter works at the Martin Luther King Center. She runs the mobile food pantry there. So both of them are doing very well, and they're locals, which is nice. So. Yeah,
and what when you come to decide, all the candidates announced in the end of June. They declare their candidacy officially. What makes you decide, or why another term? Is the job just not done yet?
Well, it's never done. The city is constantly evolving. There are issues constantly. I mean, you fix one issue, another issue comes up. Then so it's never done. I'm sure that there will be a point where I'll say, okay, I let's give it to someone else. But there will always be issues. And when we're not going to be able to fix them in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, So, but that's what government is about. It's about changing and fixing. So,
it could be recency bias, but I feel like it kind of started with Newport Grands, and then the Pell expansion in Rogers, and now here we are with school regionalization. It has been a chaotic isn't the right word because that's kind of negative, but it has been a busy couple years.
It has, and we've done a lot. I mean, I was trying to make a list in my head of the things that we've done over the last 2 years, and we have started, I shouldn't say started the work, but we are tackling many issues on many fronts. And unfortunately, things move slowly. It's sort of the nature of the way things happen in government. But we are working on, we passed the North End Urban Plan, which is an all-encompassing plan for jobs, to promote jobs, a new economy, housing, walkability, bikeability, open space. It really runs the gamut. And I'm very proud of that plan. It actually has won an award by the state for being really, and we've had our planner, Trish Reynolds, who has worked diligently on this. And I have to say that I'm quite proud of that plan. So it is a blueprint moving forward for developers to develop properties. And I believe that, we can be successful through this plan.
What do you think? This could go in so many different ways. Some of the biggest priorities right now are for the city or city council in moving forward over the next couple of years.
Well, there are so many. I mean, the ones off the top of your head, of course, are housing and transportation. And, the North End is really the last frontier in Newport where there is land available for, more housing. I mean, we are built out in the city. So obviously housing, transportation. We're going to be looking at the new master transportation plan, which was being developed, and there's been a lot of public input on that. So we'll see what that has to say. It's funny, I was reading a book about, it was something about Newport and Olmsted, not the original Olmsted, but his son who did a study in Newport back in 1910 or something like that. And they were complaining about too many cars on the roads then. So you can imagine, how we are now. But we are trying to, with this master transportation plan, look at other ways of moving cars around the city. One of the things that we did, actually, it was before COVID, Jean Marie Napolitano and I had a great meeting with Evan Smith from Discover Newport and Scott Everdesian from RIPTA talking about hop-on, hop-off buses. And we're trying to alleviate some of the traffic and one of the things, you can have all the buses you want, but if you don't have the incentives for making people take those buses, people are just going to drive around the city looking for parking spaces. And so one of the things was trying to create incentives for people to take these buses. And one of them was this free hop-on, hop-off bus. And those conversations happened before the pandemic, but we were very happy when Discover Newport and RIPTA decided to finance the bus, and it's been very successful. And so I am hoping that that's more of the way that I would like to see us go, is through free public transportation in the city. We have an opportunity with the Pell realignment, the bridge realignment, and there will be a new parking lot there, and that's another opportunity to place shuttles and try to get people out of their cars onto a parking lot. And then, but you need the communication up front as well, before people get there, to know how often the shuttles leave, and just to give people reassurance. So it's about tourism, but it's also about helping the residents.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that the hop on, hop off was a success. I had wondered over the summer how it did. And of course, programs like that, they grow in popularity the longer they go on. So hopefully we can see them again in the spring, summer, fall of next year.
Right. Well, I had spoken to Evan Smith about it, and he was very, very, very happy with how it's going. So I can see that continuing as time goes on and becoming more popular.
That's great news. Before we dive into some of the topics, you are well, we can go here first. There's only two incumbents, you as well as Mayor Jean Marie Napolitano, who are running for the at-large. So you're going to have at least 3 new members, Ward 3, as well as 2 at-large. It's a time of change and some new folks on the
exciting, right? It's exciting. Change is it can be scary and exciting all at the same time. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not guaranteed a spot on the council for sure. I'm always nervous about an election and hoping that, I've done things that have made the city better, and for people to, vote for me again and continue my work. But I find new blood exciting and new personalities exciting. I'm sorry to see Jamie and Elizabeth go, but they have their lives that they need to live, and I'm sure we'll hear more from them at another time.
As somebody pointed out the other day, you could always go and come back. Serving the public, these roles are available every 2 or 4 years as you need them.
Well, that's right. And, certainly Kate Leonard has had a long term on the council, and, she has her supporters, and, so we will, we'll see what happens. And I'm excited. I'm nervous, but excited.
Following this now, the council now for 10 years, 11 years, and you're the first incumbent I've talked to this time around. Wonder if you could talk me through how difficult it is to make a decision, the best decision for everybody. Sometimes when you watch these meetings, you hear lots of things in the background of why people are pushing different ways. But I trust all of the incumbents that they're always doing it for the right reasons. But it's going to be incredibly hard to represent all of the city's decision on a vote.
Yes, because, I come to this feeling, well, I have to vote with what I feel is right. And sometimes that makes 50% of the people happy, and sometimes it makes 50% of the people unhappy. And then the next vote switches the 50%, so you have to do what's right, what you think is right. It's really the only way I can go. It is difficult and weighing things. When I was on the zoning board, it was really interesting because we would get applications for properties, and I would look at the application and I'd say, oh, well, this is the way it should be, and then you hear the arguments on both sides, and you're like, oh, that's right. No, that's right. No, that's right. Oh, that's right. And then suddenly something clicks and you go, I know how I want to go on this. And a lot of it is based on law, and that actually happens on the city council too, is based on what is allowable. So it's finding that right fit for you and what you think is right.
And I want to use this opportunity to promote, because I really do honestly believe that it matters, to encourage people that if you do have an opinion on something coming up, to reach out to your counselors, to share your opinion. to show up at meetings. I think sometimes people think the vote is predetermined, but I'm sure that if people are in front of you in the city council chambers sharing their opinion, it matters a lot to hear from as many voters and residents of the city as possible.
It certainly does, and a vote is never written in stone. I think what's helpful for me, though, rather than it's difficult when people come to a meeting when we're expected to vote that evening. I prefer people calling me and emailing me prior to the meeting so that I have time to investigate something or think about something. But it's like so I prefer the more upfront, the conversations in advance. That's just the way I operate, and anyone can email me. I email everyone back. I try to call everyone back. I try to be as responsive as I possibly can, and give my reasons for what I feel, but try to listen to what, they're feeling as well. So that's important. But the evening of it is a little more difficult, so give me a little time, and then so I think that's
it's tough to process what somebody's saying just minutes before you have to make a decision on it.
Right. Well, and that's one of the reasons why we have 2 votes on ordinances too. So we can approve something on first reading, but then 2 weeks later, you can rethink something, you can change something, you can hear more from what the people think, so that does give you some time. That's sort of built in right there, and that is excellent.
Let's when people visit, when they see their ballot October 19th, or early voting starts October 19th. You can vote anytime between then and November 8th. Obviously, general election November 8th. People remember, turn it over. There's going to be 10 questions on the back, and 6 of those are pertinent to just Newport residents. We'll start from the bottom, but 6 through 10 are charter. So I've been calling them. Some of them are clerical more than anything. Fix up language to match 2022, things like that. What are your thoughts on the ones that ended up there and the ones that didn't in the whole charter review process?
Yeah, the charter review this time was very difficult. There have been some complaints that the charge was too broad for the charter review commission members, and I understand that complaint in a sense, but when you do a charter review and you're mandated by the state every 10 years to do it, they really have to look at the entire document. I mean, it wouldn't be, unless we were to give them a committee a specific charge to look at one thing, they really need to look at the whole document. And I don't really feel that it's fair to tell them what I think right before they even start their work. I mean, that's not right either. So it puts us in sort of a funny position, and we had 36, 37 changes that came before us. And, there's just no way that we could put all of those changes on the ballot. We are looking to perhaps work to try to modernize the charter a bit. The language is a bit archaic. But we're asking, well, does that really need to go on a ballot if the change is not, it doesn't change the meaning of something? So that's something that we're wrestling with right now. As far as the questions, which I'm sure you're talking about mayor being voted by the electorate and term limits and all.
Yeah, those are some of the bigger ones that everybody caught on to out of the 40. Yeah. I'm going to correct myself. There are 7 questions, local questions for Newport, 4 through 10.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, the mayor one did not even get a second on the floor, so no one really wanted to put that one on the ballot, and I'll tell you why I didn't want to. The mayor is truly a council president, and a council president is typically voted in by their peers. And the mayor we do not have a strong mayor system. We have a council manager form of government. The mayor has no more power than the rest of the council members. And I think it's confusing for the public to think that they're voting for a mayor when the mayor is really a council president and not a mayor, like, for instance, like what you would see in Providence or Boston or Pawtucket even. So I think that's a little confusing. The mayor represents the council at events, and that's about it. So I found it it could be confusing for the public in that regard. And I think where we fall down at times is communicating that with the public and what our form of government really is.
I would agree. From the outside looking in, I think often, because there are several different types on the island and throughout Rhode Island, I think people get confused by it generally if they're not 100% paying attention. Absolutely.
So I think we need to do a lot more communication on that. And that was really that's on us to do that. As far as term limits, frankly, I do not agree with term limits, and I don't agree with it for governor. I don't agree with it for president. I just don't. It's just a philosophical thing for me. I think elections are term limits, and if you don't like someone, you vote them out. If you like them, you vote them back in. And I find that rather undemocratic. And I said that on the floor, and I got kind of criticized for that, but that's how I really feel.
I'm not asking you to speak on behalf of your fellow council members, but I imagine that you, as a sitting council member, would recommend that the charter amendments be approved. There's nothing that.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Yes, we need to bring some of those parts of the charter review. We need to bring them up to state law. So, and that's what a lot of these are.
Yeah, so 6 through 10 are those, and I just hadn't had a chance. I've read them, but the legalese can sometimes get lost, and just wanted to make sure that the hope is that everybody approves them.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
And then question 4 and 5, you can tackle these in whatever order that you wish to, but 4 authorizes licenses for cannabis businesses in the city of Newport. People can see all of this on their sample ballot. And number 5 is establishment of a regional school district. And those are local questions here in Newport. Your thoughts on those two?
Well, I'll take the marijuana one first. I don't really have an opinion on this. I see both sides of this. I see a possible loss in revenue by not voting for it, but at the same time, we have to be very careful as to where a dispensary would be put. You have to have adequate parking. There'd be a lot more traffic. And frankly, we have the Navy, and we have contractors who forbid any kind of cannabis use. And they're typically in the north end of the city. It's a mixed bag for me. And I will do whatever the voters feel, and I'll be satisfied with that. I really am sort of conflicted on it myself. I'm glad it's on the ballot, because I think the voters need to have the opportunity to say whether or not they actually want to have it in their city.
Yeah. Sounds like as a voter, you could be pushed either way.
Yes, I can. And I don't have a philosophical issue with marijuana necessarily. I think alcohol certainly causes as many problems, and it's very prevalent. So, and I go back and forth on it. I'm just happy that the voters will have their say.
And to let people know, it came from the General Assembly, pretty much authorizing every city and town to put this question on their ballot. So this is where it all came from. You guys didn't just dream this up overnight.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I don't really have a dog in that fight. It's whatever happens, and I'm gonna go with that one. As for regionalization, oh boy, we're starting to build Pell, and well, the Pell edition and Rogers, and I got a call saying, you know, what do you think about regionalization, from someone in Middletown? And I said, are you out of your mind? We are building Rogers. How can this possibly be, you know? So there was some more talk about it, and you know, the more I thought about the opportunities that are presented in this proposal, I began coming around and realizing that perhaps regionalization could work for Newport and Middletown together. There's been a lot of talk about money, and I understand that, and perhaps less talk about the educational value of it. But my contention is that nothing happens without money. And in order to create opportunities for our kids, whether it's CTE or, you know, career technical, or whether it's universal pre-K, or it's more enrichment programs, or more arts programs, or more field trips, or, you know, all of this stuff costs money. And the incentives for, you know, going forward with this would allow for those opportunities to happen. Where the rub in this is that we cannot say what an unelected body would do. What we can say is that the resources would be there in order to make these things happen. And with the with Rogers and Pell edition, with the Pell edition and the new Rogers, we are guaranteed now 52.5% reimbursement from the state. That would jump to 80.5%, which over 25 years is about $46 million. I mean, think about what we could do to, number one, defray some of the cost of, you know, the taxes and paying off that principal and interest, which amounts to about $160 million. And you know, what could we do with a portion of that $46 million in order to create an endowment? It's something that I put on the resolution of the council, because, you know, I wanted to express the fact that Middletown, we have been speaking with Middletown, and they are, you know, very much on board with creating an endowment for our kids with some of that money. So I just see opportunities through regionalization. I think that, you know, the studies show that regionalization is successful depending on leadership, and we would need to, if it were to pass, of course, you know, we would need to have people who in leadership positions who understand regionalization, who support regionalization, and who want the best for our kids, you know. So but I do believe that the opportunities presented are great. And coming from a parent of two kids in the Newport Public Schools, when the schools were level funded for many years, as I said earlier, you know, I mean, these are programs that impact kids. And so, you know, I see opportunities everywhere. I see the glass half full. There would be, and actually I spoke with the superintendent recently, and she is working with the Middletown superintendent, talking about what programs could possibly come up. But of course, you know, that's all non-binding, and there will be an academic advisory group that will create based on community input, a blueprint for a regionalized school committee to work off of, to know what kinds of programs that are needed in the schools, and what kind of schools we want. Plus, it's an opportunity to stabilize the finances. You know, every year the school committee comes to us and they need, you know, 2% more, 4% more, 2 more. You know, we're constantly balancing the needs of the schools and the needs of the city, and to continually to provide services. So there's always this crunch. You know, if we can break that cycle, I think that our education, the value of our education would go up. So you know, there are criticisms that we would have two high schools. And one of the things that I have to say about that is, yes, we have Rogers being built now, but a new high school in Middletown would not be finished till 2028 at the earliest. So, you know, there's really no way to combine them now anyway. So, I mean, let's walk before we run. And, you know, I know, and the people I have spoken to in Middletown through this, there was a concerned citizens that wanted unification for many years. You know, they are very supportive of this, and I would say there's good, you know, 1,200 people on this committee who have signed on to this this effort, who would like to see this, and these are mostly Middletown people. So, you know, there's talk about feelings being hurt. I understand that, but you know, I think we have to look beyond that. And if I worried about having my feelings hurt every time I read a Facebook comment, you know, I wouldn't get up in the morning. So,
Same.
So you know, I mean, you gotta, you know, maybe it's just the business I'm in, but you know, I see this as opportunity and stabilization and a good thing for our community.
So, in summary, in your educated opinion, because you are much closer to it than you've studied it a lot more than a lot of us, and probably have a lot more facts than opinions than a lot of us. In your educated opinion, it's in the best interest of all students in Newport and residents of Newport for this to move forward.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I see that. You know, I went to an event over at Innovate Newport. We had several gentlemen from India come and look at business opportunities on Aquidneck Island, and of course the blue economy is something that is really exploding now. There's everything from fisheries to examining the floor, the ocean floor. There's just countless opportunities and job opportunities available, which is something that, you know, we want to promote in the North End, like these types of companies coming. But you know what they were saying is that they need workers, but they don't need workers that are necessarily college educated or have advanced degrees. They need people with certificates. They need people with, you know, people who can drive boats, people who can. So, I mean, all of a sudden, like a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, geez, you know, these are the kinds of programs that we could have, because we would have the money to create these programs. Without money, you don't have the programs. When you go to a school committee meeting, what do they talk about? They talk about money, primarily, right? And so when they say, well, we don't have the money to do this, well, you know, this is an opportunity to stabilize that. And I see that as a good thing. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You know what? We'll go back to what we're doing, and we'll try to make it the best we possibly can. We'll have a beautiful Rogers High School. But I do believe that this is in the best interest of our kids. Yes.
And I encourage everybody to go read, see your sample ballot, and read question 5, because with any of these bond questions, and this isn't the fault of anybody except just how things happen, the language could be a little tough to understand. And hopefully people read these questions ahead of time and not on November 8th to try to understand what it means or what it doesn't mean. So.
Right. I agree with that. It can be difficult, but you know, we are trying to get information out more and more, and it was difficult in the summer. It seemed as though, you know, people were, you know, busy doing other things, which I certainly understand, you know, but I just, you know, the more people know, the better off they are.
That is true, and yeah, we'll see what happens. It's on our doorstep. It's less than 2 weeks away. People start voting, so hopefully people do some research. We can bring you all the information you want, but you have, you know, it's the whole dog to a bowl or whatever it is, dog to food or fish to a pond or however it works. But you have to go seek some of this information and consume it and understand it yourself.
You know, I just want to mention one other thing. You know, people say, well, this seems like it's, you know, been hurried and everything. And in a sense, it has been. And would I like to say that there was more time? Yes. But would time actually answer the questions that some people have there? Not really, because those questions need to be answered by an elected body. And so there, you know, it's difficult. That's the difficulty in this. So.
Lynn, were there any other topics that you wanted to bring up today? I know we could talk for hours if we had the time, but was there anything else that you wanted to bring up before I ask you why people should once again put a check next to your name when they go to vote?
Yeah, I actually, there's been a lot of talk about a homestead exemption, and I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. We have before us, well, actually the General Assembly just passed enabling legislation for us to do a two-tiered residential tax classification. And Chris Bean, the city solicitor, is drawing up ordinances now for that. And we will be having a workshop on October the 25th. I'm not sure the time yet, 5:36, I'm not quite sure yet. But, and there will be a first reading most likely on the 26th at our council meeting, having to do with this two-tiered residential. Now we have a two-tiered system now with residential and business. But we would increase that to a three levels. And what this is would be to take some of the burden off of full-time residents in Newport and to put some of the burden on the part-time residents. And it's not a homestead exemption per se, because what this does is, you know, we are always having to worry about revenue, because revenue is what drives the services. It drives how we pay for infrastructure, how we do anything, you know, how trash pickup, I mean, you know, all of that. So, so this two-tier system would have less of an impact on the revenue coming in than a homestead exemption, if that makes any sense. So, anyway, so this is what we're going after. We're trying to take the burden off of the full-time residents and try and shift it. So, you know, when people say we need a homestead exemption, well, yes, we do. We need to worry about our full-time residents, and that's what we're doing now. These things are very complicated. Putting legislation into the General Assembly is never easy. So I just wanted to mention that that's something that you'll be seeing in the next couple of weeks.
Do you think there will be, once, if this is moved forward and implemented, do you think there will be more of a need for more, I'm trying to find the right word, but more homestead exemption, or the conversation will continue after that, or you think it will satisfy the needs?
Well, we have to satisfy the needs of residents. We also need to make sure we have the revenue in order to satisfy the needs of residents. So again, there's the balance and there's the difficulty, right? So we have to find a way to make it work for everything, and that's the tricky part of all of this. We just can't reduce revenue. It's not like a business, you know, where you get revenue and then you reinvest that. I mean, we raise taxes in order to provide the services. That's it, you know, and so those taxes are put toward services. That's all they're put toward. There's no reinvestment and things like that. So it's just it's a difficult balance. You know, we're always trying to think about the residents. You know, there's been some criticism about that, but, you know, again, you know, we do live in a very vibrant tourist city, and but we are always trying to find ways of making things better for the residents. For instance, with the short-term rental ban. You know, it's not a blanket ban in any way. People have a right in their homes, if they live there, to rent 2 bedrooms in their homes It's really aimed toward those dark homes where there are short-term rentals. So that's what we're trying to do, and we're always trying to balance the needs of the residents with this incredible city that we live in. So
It is, and I'm as I've said to many of the incumbents, thank you. I don't think we say it enough, and everybody should say it at some point, even if you're mad at them or don't think they're representing you. They are all volunteer roles, and we need to thank all of you more for your service, because I'm sure there's been a night or two you've lost sleep over a decision you had to make or made, because you can't possibly represent everybody that wants you to prove something and represent everybody who wants you to reject something.
Yeah, well, as I said, you got to do what you think is right, and you just hope that you're on the right side of the right. So that's all I can say, So, but
and you want people to vote for you so you can continue representing the people of Newport.
Yes, and I think my strength is in the one-on-one representation. I think that's how I kind of cut my teeth in the second ward, is just being responsible to the residents, and they're dealing with nuisances and parking and traffic and speeding, and trying to get more enforcement, trying to just the little things that make a city livable.
Excellent. Well, Lynn, I thank you for your time today. I know it's a busy time of the year, and I appreciate it. And I hope people will reach out to you if they are concerned, or if they want to say thank you, or if they have anything else that comes up.
Yes, just email me, text me, call me, whatever. I'm available, and I'm happy to help. So thank you.
All right, Lynn, thank you, and we will see you soon.
Alrighty, bye-bye. Thank you.
All right, that is Lynn Ceglie. She is an incumbent, and she is running once again for Newport City Council at Large. Visit vote.ri.gov. You can see your entire sample ballot. If you want to see some other interviews that we have done with incumbents, as well as newcomers, all available on whatsupnuke.com. What's Up Podcast is also available on your favorite podcasting platform. Thanks for watching.